What's up you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jenny and I am that props girl, and today we are going to be talking about a production which I recently saw in Sydney called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes at the Hayes Theatre. This was an extraordinary production and I can't wait to share about it with you guys, so if you are keen to see that then stick around. Be sure to smash that like button because it lets me know you want to see more content like this, as well as consider hitting that subscribe button and bell so that you don't miss a single one of my uploads, and it helps me to grow on the platform. And with all that said and done, let's jump straight into this video. Okay, so I walked into this production not knowing what it was going to be about, and I went on opening night. It was an extremely fun opening to start with because there was a great vibe about it. It was dress up, so the theme was, I think, vintage Hollywood, which is kind of like, you know, sequin gowns and all that sort of stuff. So I wore a sequin ball gown, which I just happened to have in my wardrobe, and the vibe was fantastic. When you have got a really great audience, it affects the quality of the show. You might not know that, but it actually does, because the actors and audience sort of feed off each other. So if the audience is going wild and is ecstatic, the actors are just gonna really like vibe off of that. And it's the same thing goes when you're backstage as well. Like, you can tell when an audience is great and you're just like, oh, this is gonna be an electric show. But if an audience is really flat, the actors are trying so much harder to sort of get that laugh. It started off well without even the show starting. This show is very old. I'm gonna put it out there. It's like the original had Marilyn Monroe in it, and it's known for like Marilyn. But it's the thing with older musicals, they don't write them like that anymore. Now, a lot of them tend to be very music heavy, and plot is quite minimal or confusing. And there, as I said, there's a lot of songs and they are very long in length. This show was long. Act 1, I feel like it lulled. Now, this is not a comment about the production. This is a comment about the script and the way that the show is just in general. Now, I will say, that being said, they did extremely well to keep the audience engaged. It's very hard with an old script that you can't change to bring it into the modern era, which they did, to keep it entertaining, which they did, and to make it as much as you can not drag out. So one of the really good things that they did was they were very tasteful in the way that they brought it into the modern era. So obviously when this show was written, it wasn't socially acceptable to be gay or transgender or anything like that. It's a very relatively new thing, and of course in a lot of circles it's still not something that's commonplace. And I'm speaking as somebody who lives in a country that is accepting, or more accepting, of people in the LGBTQI plus community. I loved the fact that they incorporated so tastefully the community and brought them into the show, and it just enhanced the show. So there were a lot of characters who were, for want of a better term, let's say camped up, but it was done in such a great way. It didn't change the script. It made the characters funny. It was kind of like the little subtle running joke of the show, and it was great. There was a huge amount of diversity within the cast, and that was beautiful to see as well. I loved the inclusion of people from all walks of life, of various sizes, ethnicities, backgrounds, everywhere, and age, all represented there, people with disabilities. It was so good to see. It was also done in, I don't know if it was a co-pro, but it was done in partnership with Sydney Pride. So Sydney World Pride is obviously part of World Pride, and it is one of the biggest Pride Mardi Gras celebrations in the world, which is exciting for Sydney and Australia to have such a big culture around Pride, which is fantastic, and it's just to really celebrate it as well. On that front, really well done. But jumping back, so as I said, the show has a tendency to lull. However, they made certain tweaks to lines, and not the lines themselves didn't change, but the way that they were delivered did, to change them to be slightly satirical or an innuendo. And it was almost like it was a reflection of how far society has come from this era, with the morals and things from that era that are not the same now. And it was really nice to sort of view it as an audience and go, yeah, we have come a really long way. And the fact that I love the fact that the main character, she was not trying to be Marilyn Monroe. She had her own version of that character. She was hilarious and it was great. And then the duo of the two lead characters were fantastic. It was just a brilliant production, and Victoria, the musical director, is always amazing. She does incredible work, and I cannot speak more highly of this production, which is still running. So if you are seeing this video before, I think it's the 25th of March, please go and see it at the Hayes Theatre in Sydney. It is phenomenal. I want to talk a little bit about set and design for this show. There were all of these globes, kind of like the globes that you would see like around a Hollywood mirror, but they were not ones that you could see the inside of. They were kind of like frosted, I guess, on the outside, but they were lit up all over the set. So you had these beautiful stairs which got moved within the show, but every single stair had a row of these lights, as did the orchestra. So the orchestra were built up above and behind the actors, so you could see them, and I think there were maybe about 4 or 5 musicians, but they were kind of like, they had this frame around them, and that frame had those globes in it. And it's very much that sort of old Hollywood sort of style with all those globes and things. It's kind of like the paparazzi, just like the, you know what I'm getting at. And so it was really, really cool to sort of see that old Hollywood vibe coming in. And the set, I must say, because it's set on a cruise ship, the set was very much reminding me of Anything Goes. Not to say that it was copied from Anything Goes, but like the vibe was very Anything Goes-y, and it, like, this show's set in a similar era, so that's going to happen. And obviously they're on a ship. Like, it is what it is. But it was very cleverly designed, and really all they had were these tables, which on one side they had audience sitting at them, and then their cast interacted with the audience and used the seats on the onstage side of them. And these stairs, that was basically it for the set. It was so minimal, but it's had such a big impact. And the stairs themselves had like hidden traps and all these different things, and they got moved to be one thing at one point, and then moved to be like a cabin at another point, and then a stage here and there. I tell a lie, sorry, there was also a chaise lounge that was brought on, and there was a piano as well. And like, they would bring out these set pieces. I'm just like, how are you fitting this? Because the Hayes is not huge, but it's amazing how theatre works with theatre magic and all that sort of stuff, and how we managed to do things. The costuming was also fantastic. There was a beautiful correlation between older clothes from the era and newer clothes. And the newer clothes that they brought, like the newer costumes that they brought in, like the newer styles, did not detract at all from the story. They weren't jarring. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a production and it's set in an olden time, but all the people are wearing jeans or something like that. And sometimes it's just called an appropriation. But for me, I get really bugged by that, because if you're going to change an era for one thing, you have to do it for all of them. I appreciated the fact that they had modernized the casting and did not completely change the costuming, but they brought in elements of modern day in a tasteful way, which, as I said, did not detract, but it made it more obvious that gay characters were gay, or, you know, that sort of. Everything was still beautiful. It didn't take away from the story, and it's one of those things that the designers for this show clearly worked very well together. I've said this in regards to props, but I believe it probably also applies to costuming and set, and really everywhere in design as well, that if you've done your job properly, well, yes, your work should be appreciated. The costumes were fantastic, don't get me wrong. Anything with sequins is amazing. But it should not upstage the production. It shouldn't be like, oh, why are they wearing that? It should look right. And there was never a question when you saw the main character in a sequined gown that she wouldn't be wearing a sequined gown, because that's who she was. Everything was very fitting and comical at times. Like, they had these little sports outfits that some of the sailors who worked on the ship wore, and it was just extremely well done. And so I appreciate the Hayes because, as I said, their theatre is relatively small. They do such fabulous productions. I also saw Godspell. If you didn't see my review on Godspell, I did it earlier in the year. I'll link it for you as well. But, you know, they do incredible productions in a very small space. They are very, very resourceful, and they have sellout crowds. Honestly, this show is insane. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little summary and a little review of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It really is just an incredible show, and it was an honor and privilege to be able to see it. I wish I could go and see it again. And if you like classic theatre, if you like musicals, go and see this show. It's a nice little reminder about how they don't write shows like this anymore, but it was such a beautiful way for this show to be brought into the modern era and also just, you know, brought back to life, because I think nobody does these shows anymore. But it was a beautiful way that shed light on the fact that you can modernize a show, and that it doesn't matter necessarily who you cast in these roles. If the story is still relevant and the story is still the same, do the show. Congratulations to Hayes, a brilliant production. I cannot wait to see the next one. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to smash the like button if you did, and consider hitting that subscribe button and bell. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.